Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Chijis Stitches. To my new subscribers, you are welcome, and to my returning subscribers, I love you all. So without further ado, we're going to be sewing this outfit on your screen. Asymmetric neckline with an asymmetric waistline. Let's get right into the video. So these are the materials that I'll be using for this tutorial. So I have my beautiful African print, also known as Ankara. This is in 6 yards, but I would not be using the whole 6 yards. I also have this beautiful crepe also. So I picked a color from my Ankara print and used it to get this beautiful crepe, and is in 2 yards. I have a matching lining for my crepe. You can see, please try and get a matching lining for your crepe. And I think this is in 1 yard. And I also have my black lining. This is in 2 yards. This is for the skirt part. Thank you. I'm going to be showing you some of the measuring tools that I'm going to be using. I have my ruler, my multipurpose ruler. I have my marker. I have this, my long rule. I have my tracer wheel. It might be necessary, it might not be necessary. I have my curves. I have my zipper and also my thread. Please also try and get a matching thread. I'll be using a matching thread for this. So these are the measurements needed for this style. Here are the measurements. We have our shoulder, our chest line, waistline, hip point, round bust, round waist, round hip, full length of the gown, armhole, and sleeve length. As time goes on, I'm going to be showing you how to impute some of these measurements in the video. Let's go. I am marking down 0.5 inches from the start of my paper. This is to indicate my shoulder line. You can see me doing that from right to left. You just mark your 0.5. Then I'm going to be introducing my ruler. I'm going to be ruling across this line. After marking my 0.5, I'm going to be labeling it my starting line. Then I'm going to be using my ruler, my measuring tape, I'm going to be getting my measurements. That is my vertical measurement. At 18 inches, I'm going to be marking my front waistline. I'm going to mark that on the other side in order to get a straight line. Please try and get a straight line. You can see me marking that at 18 inches for my waistline. So I'm going to be squaring out my waistline with my ruler. Then I'm going to be marking out my hip point. That is, my hip point is 9 inches. So I'm going to be marking 9 inches below my waistline. You can see me imputing 9 inches. Always make sure you have a straight line. Then square it out with the ruler. Then my full length is 63, but my pattern paper is on 40 something. So I'm going to be indicating adding more inches to this pattern paper. Then on my fabric, I'm going to introduce it. So I'm going to be imputing my shoulder measurement, and I'm going to be using 7.5 for my shoulder measurement, and I'm going to be using 3.5 for my shoulder width. Then on my shoulder measurement, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'm going to be using a ruler to connect the lines together. Now, in order to get my chest line, I'm going to bring a paper and I'm going to write round bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. This is to get my chest line, and I'm going to impute that right after the slope. I'm going to be imputing my chest line. You can see I have done that. I'm going to measure my shoulder and bring it down exactly 7.5 up, 7.5 down in order to get a straight line. You can see that there's a slight shift there. I'm going to roll the lines together, and I'm going to square out to get my chest line. And I'm going to label. So we have our shoulder line, we have our chest line, we have our waistline, and we have our hip point. This is our vertical measurements. Then in order to get my armhole, I'm going to be dividing what I have on my chest line into 2. You can see me placing the ruler, and I'm going to impute that. After dividing, I'm going to come in by 0.5 inches to get that curve for my armhole. So after doing that, I'm going to be introducing my armhole curve. But before that, I'm going to measure out my round circumference in order to get my chest line. So my round bust measurement I'm using here is 9.3. I have imputed that, so I'm going to use my armhole curve to get a perfect curve for that. So using my armhole curve, I'm going to be getting a perfect armhole. So I'm going to be marking from my shoulder slope through the 0.5 all the way to the chest line. You can see a perfect armhole curve I have there. So for my neck width, as we all know, I use 3.5. I'm going to be using 6 inches for my neck depth. You can see me. Then I'm going to square it all out. I'm using my ruler to square the 3.5 for the neck width and 6 inches for the neck depth. And you can see me writing it down there for more clarity and more visibility. So after that, I'm going to be taking my horizontal measurement, that is my round measurement, and I'm going to be starting from my chest line. And you can see that I've already imputed a quarter of my bust measurement, that is my round bust measurement divided by 4. I'm going to be adding 2 inches to that for my sewing allowance. On my waistline, I'm going to be imputing my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance, and I'm going to be repeating that on my waist, that is my round waist, my round hip measurements divided by 4 plus 2 inches for sewing allowance. You can see me imputing that there. So I'm going to be lifting up my pattern paper because my pattern paper is not long and my table too is not long. So I'm going to be shifting it up so that people can see clearly. Then I'm going to measure out all I have on my hip line, that is the total measurement on that hip line. I think I have about 13 there. I'm going to put that on my full length and I'm going to deduct 2. Why am I deducting 2? Is because of the pencil gown effect I'm trying to create. I want the down to be penciled, so that is why I'm removing 2 inches from my hip measurement, and the remaining I'm going to be marking it down on the full length. After imputing that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect from my chest line to my waistline. So introducing my ruler, I'm trying to connect all these lines together, and you can see I've connected my chest line to my waistline, and I'm going to be using my curve to highlight my waistline to my hip line to get that perfect curve. After that, I'm going to be connecting from my hip line all the way to the full length. That is why I'm going to be introducing my longer ruler to help me achieve this, and you can see me ruling that out. Make sure you have your lines all ruled correctly and perfectly. So after all measurements have been taken and I have ruled out my lines, so I am trying to blend the curvy parts, that is my hip line and my waistline. Try and blend all the curves because there is no part of the body at this side that is sharp but curvy. So I'm going to be cutting out my pattern right now. Kindly watch where I am cutting through in order to get a perfect clean cut. So I'm done with the cutting, and this is what I have. This is the pattern after cutting it out. You can see how beautiful it is. So I am going to be replicating exactly what I have on this part at the other part. So I'm going to replicate at the neck side, the neck width and the neck depth. You can see me replicating that. If you have a tracer wheel, just kindly trace out all this line and it will replicate on the other line, and you use your marker to mark it out. So I'm doing this for people that do not have a tracer wheel. After that, I'm going to open up my pattern. You can see exactly what I have, and I'm going to use my ruler to square out the lines. I'm going to be starting at the neckline. I'm going to square it out to get a perfect rectangle or square, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to extend my waistline, and I'm going to be extending my hip line. So after extending that, I'm going to relabel, that is my waistline, because after cutting it, I cut out the waistline. So after this, now you're going to determine where you want your slant to start from. Is it from the right side or the left side? So for me, I want my slant to be starting from the right hand side. So this is me explaining that. So I have indicated my right hand side. I've been able to get my right hand and my left side. So this is me indicating that. Just indicate where you would like your slant to start from. So this is my right side. Yes, I want my slant to start from my right side going down to my hip. But if you want yours to start from your left hand side, just mark the opposite of what I'm marking. But before that, I'm going to be taking out the 2 inches that we added for sewing allowance. I want to take this out in order to be able to get my asymmetric line. So this is me taking out the 2 inches for my chest line, my waistline, my hip line down to my full length, and I'm going to use my ruler and my curve to connect this line. I have connected my chest line to my waistline, and from my waistline to my hip line using my curve. I'm trying to get my hip curve. Try and get a perfect hip curve. After getting that, I'm going to introduce my long ruler and use that to extend the line from my hip line to the full length of the dress. After doing that, I'm going to shape in. I'm going to adjust the curves to make sure it's curvy. So I'm going to replicate exactly what I did on the right side to the left side. That is marking out my 2 inches for my chest line, my waistline, hip line, and the full length. Then I'm going to bring out my ruler and my curves, and I'm going to connect my chest line to my waistline, and from my waistline to my hip line using the curvy parts to get out my curves. Then I'm going to use my long ruler to rule down straight to the full length. So here I made a mistake when I was ruling down. I wasn't supposed to rule out that line, but I think I had a mistake there, so I had to re-rule the line again. You can see me introducing the ruler and re-ruling my line. Please always make sure that you cross-check whatever you're doing to avoid mistakes. So sorry for that line, and use the correct line appropriately. Then this is me curving out. I have curved out my sides. Now for the part that the crepe fabric is joining with the Ankara, that is the asymmetric waistline. On the waistline, I'm going to be coming up by 1 inch from my right side, and I'm going to be slanting it all the way to my hip line. So here is the trick. If you want to direct that 1 inch to your hip line, then you can do that. But if you do not want, like for me, I do not want that, so I'm going to be going up by 2 inches on my hip line. I'm going to place my measuring tape and mark 2 inches up from my hip line. You can see the mark there. I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to slant down from my waistline to my hip line. You can see me doing that. So sorry, I didn't know that the camera was off focus. So now this is me slanting down from my waistline straight to my hip line, because I want the asymmetric at that waistline to come up a bit. So this is it, from my waistline to my hip line. You can see the slant there. So for the neckline, it's very simple. Wherever the asymmetric waistline is facing on the down part, that is where the neckline is going to be facing. So just use your ruler and connect from the right hand side to the left hand side. As simple as that. You just rule a straight line across like this, and that is it. So simple. Then now I'm going to be labeling it my top parts. That is for the top part, that is where the crepe, and for the skirt part, that is the down part, that is for the Ankara or the African print. So after this, I'm going to be cutting out my pattern. So I'm going to be cutting out from the waistline straight to the hip line, that is the slant that I have drawn. So I'm going to be cutting out my slant from my right side to my left side. So I have gotten out the up part and the down part now. Then I'm going to be cutting out the neckline. Very simple. And this is it for the front part, that is the top part and the skirt part. Now let's cut the back. So now we are cutting our back. So we're going to be marking out 2 inches for our zipper allowance. This is me marking my 2 inches for my zipper allowance. I'm going to use my ruler to rule straight. After ruling that, I'm going to indicate zip. Then from the zipper allowance, I'm going to be marking out all my measurements. Please, after the zipper allowance, not before the zipper allowance. Don't include the zipper allowance to your measurements. Then mark down 0.5 or half an inch down for my starting line, and I'm going to rule across the lines. So I'm going to label my starting line like we initially did in the front line, in the front pattern. So I'm going to be marking down my vertical measurements. I'm going to be marking out my measurement for the back, that is my waistline. I used 18 at the front and I'm using 16 for the back, and I'm going to square it out. So if you're still watching till now, please do like this video and subscribe. Thank you. So I'm going to be marking out my shoulder measurements on my starting line, that is 7.5, and I'm going to be using 3.5 inches for the width, just like we used at the front. Then for the depth, I'm going to be coming down by 5.5 inches for the back neckline, because I want my back to be a bit deeper. So this is me marking it out, and I'm going to square it out. You can actually just place your curve and rule out a curved neckline if you want that. So this is me, this is what I've done. Then I'm going to just curve it out to get my back neckline. Kindly place your curve correctly to get your back neckline. So I just had to change the curve and use this particular curve to get what I wanted. So after curving out my neckline, I'm going to be coming down 1 inch. So I'm going to be coming down 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'm going to be connecting that line to my neckline. But before that, I'm going to be coming down to get my chest line like we did initially at the front. So I'm going to be connecting my shoulder slope to my neckline, and I'm also going to be connecting my slope down to my chest line. So I'm going to measure out that 7.5 in order to get a perfect straight line. Like I told you, your line must always be straight, and I'm going to straight it out. Then I'm going to square out the chest line. Having done that, I'm going to label my lines, that is my chest line, and I'm going to be coming down to get my armhole. So this is me now taking out my armhole measurement. I'm going to divide my armhole into 2. Whatever I have, I'm going to indicate that there. This is unlike the front armhole. I'm going to measure out 1/4 of my bust measurement on my chest line. After that, I'm going to be adding my 2 inches sewing allowance, and I'm going to use my curve to curve it out. You can see where I'm placing my curve. I'm not coming in by 0.5. I'll just place my curve there and rule out. That is for my back armhole. So after that, I'm going to be measuring out my waistline. I'm cross-checking on my chest line to know if it's accurate. Then I'm going to measure on my waistline, my quarter of my waistline, that is my round waist divided by 4 plus 2 inches. I'm going to label it my waistline, and I'm going to use my ruler and rule this out. I'm going to get my shape. After I've gotten the shape of what I want, now to avoid zipper bulge, I'm going to be coming in by 1 inch on the zipper part on my waistline, and I'm going to use my ruler to rule it straight. This is just me trying to extend my neckline. I'm going to rule from my waistline straight up to my neck point to avoid zipper bulge. After ruling that, I'm just going to shade out the part that I'm going to cut. So this part shaded X is the part that I'm going to cut. So now this is my new zipper allowance. After all these have been done, I'm going to be cutting out the pattern. So watch carefully at where I am cutting out. My side, my armhole, my shoulder, and my neckline. Then cut out this excessive zipper allowance. Then now this is the pattern for the back. Okay, we're going to be drafting the back skirt pattern. I'm going to be coming down by 0.5 inches down from the tip of my pattern paper. I'm going to be ruling a line across it. This is going to be my starting line, that is my waistline for the skirt. So I'm going to be coming down by my hip point. I'm using 9 inches. So I'm going to be marking down that 9 inches from my waistline down to give me 9 inches. I'm going to mark that across in order to get a straight line, and I'm going to use my ruler to rule out the lines. After ruling that, I'm going to be measuring my full length. I am quite tall and my length is about 63, so I'm indicating here add more inches. I'm going to be adding these inches on my fabric when I'm cutting. After indicating that, I'm going to now measure out my zipper allowance, and for my zipper allowance I'm going to be using 2 inches to mark out my zipper allowance. I've marked that on my waistline, on my hip line, and I'm going to mark that down towards the full length of the skirt. After that, I'm going to use my long ruler to rule a line down, a straight line from my waistline to my hip line and down to the full length of the skirt. So after ruling this line, I'm going to label it zipper allowance. Then now for my horizontal measurement, I'm going to be coming after my zipper allowance. Please, after your zipper allowance, don't start before the zipper allowance. After my zipper allowance, I'm going to be marking out my waist measurement, which is 8.5. I'm going to put that there. Then I'm going to mark 2 inches of sewing allowance. On my hip line, I'm going to be marking out my hip measurement divided by 4. That is what I've imputed there. Now I'm going to be adding another paper to join this paper because I found out that I didn't have enough paper to mark out my full horizontal measurement. So I'm going to be adding another paper, and you can see that I have added another paper in order to help me get a better measurement. So after that, I rule the line straight out. Then I'm going to be marking out my hip measurement like I said initially, plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance. After that, I'm going to measure out the whole measurement on my hip, that is the total on my hip. I think that is 13. So I'm going to be removing 2 inches from that 13, and I'm going to be imputing it there in order to get the pencil effect like we said earlier. So I'm going to be connecting using my curve from my waistline to my hip line, using my hip curve. Then I'm going to connect from my hip line straight to the full length of the skirt using my long ruler. Try and place your ruler so that you can get the right measurements or pattern. So after doing that, I'm going to curve out my hip in order to make sure that I have a good hip measurement and good hip curve. Sorry. Then I'm going to cut this out. That is simple. That is all for the skirt pattern. So I'm going to be adding half an inch on my shoulder, that is 0.5. I'm going to also add it at the base, at that asymmetric part, and I'm going to be cutting. Please make sure to add your 0.5 and watch where I am cutting. So this is me cutting out the top parts. Then after that, I'm going to be pinning my back parts, 0.5 inch at the base, just like you can see that I've added, and I'm going to cut out too. And also 0.5 on your shoulder. These are joining allowances. Then I'm going to cut out. You can see at my armhole, I didn't add any allowance. Then notch your zipper points. Now that is the back piece. So to the skirt, I'm going to be extending the lines down. You can see where I am pointing. Just extend it down with your ruler. That is for the full length. And I'm going to cut 0.5 inch at the up part, because I'm going to be joining the front part and the down part. That is the top of this top and the skirt. So this is the back part for the skirt. So you can see me extending my lines exactly like I did in the front, and I'm also going to cut this out. There is no allowance at the zip, and this is me cutting my lining. I'm using 0.5 to cut at the base because I'm going to be using 0.5 to turn my lining with the skirt. So in my subsequent video, I'm going to be teaching you how to use lining to turn your skirt. That is a full lining skirt. So you can see that is what I'm imputing, and you can see that is what I'm using, that's my ruler to show you guys.